Let me ask you something and answer with your soul, not your fear. What if the only thing holding your life back was a thought you never questioned? What if the ceiling you keep hitting isn't made of circumstance, but of belief? Because here's the truth. Most people are too scared to face. You are not limited by your reality. You are limited by what you think is real. Whatever the mind can conceive and truly believe, it can achieve. That's not a motivational phrase. That's law, unbreakable, unforgiving, undeniable. I'm not talking about wishful thinking. I'm talking about creating a vision so vivid, so real, so rooted in your spirit that the universe has no choice but to respond. The mind is not a mirror. It's a magnet. It doesn't reflect your life. It pulls your life toward it. Every dream, every failure, every breakthrough, it all begins with what you permit yourself to believe. And most people, they've built prisons inside their own heads. They've locked themselves in cages of doubt, fear, shame, and thrown away the key. But you're not most people. You wouldn't be here if you were. So I'm going to tell you the truth, the kind that changes the way you breathe. Your mind is the workshop of your destiny. What you build in thought will appear in flesh. Now ask yourself this: what are you building? Most people dream like beggars, timid, cautious, afraid to ask too much from life. But the truth is this: the universe is not judging the size of your dreams. It's watching the size of your belief. Your mind doesn't care if you imagine a small life or a legendary one. It will accept whatever vision you feed it as truth. And then, slowly, relentlessly, it will begin to construct that reality around you. But here's where most get it wrong. They think belief comes from results. They wait for evidence before they commit. But the mind works in reverse. It doesn't ask, is this true? It asks, how often have we repeated this? It doesn't care if the thought is a lie. If you repeat it long enough, it becomes law. So if you keep telling yourself you're not good enough, that you always fail, that life is unfair, then your mind, obedient as always, will make it so. But if you speak power, if you dare to dream beyond logic, if you plant thoughts of triumph, of wealth, of strength, over and over with ruthless focus, then you change the very chemistry of your future. You're not a prisoner of your past. You're a prisoner of your patterns. And the moment you decide to rewrite those patterns, you change everything. I have seen men rise from ruin not because life gave them a second chance, but because they believed they still had one. I've watched failure turn to fortune, not by luck, not by timing, but by sheer inner certainty, by the force of an idea held so firmly in the mind that reality had to bend in response. You don't need a miracle. You don't need a handout. You need to decide what story you're writing and commit to it so deeply, so fully, that the world starts reading from your script. You've done it before without knowing. You've worried about things that hadn't happened and suffered them as if they were real. That's the power of your mind. It doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So if fear can destroy you before anything even touches you, then faith, real, unshakable faith, can build you before anything proves you right. Most people walk around hypnotized, conditioned by other people's failures, trained by other people's doubts. They don't realize they've been living in a cage made of secondhand beliefs. But you're waking up. And that's dangerous, because once a mind becomes aware of its own power, there's no turning back. You stop waiting. You stop wishing. You start declaring. And everything around you, slowly, then suddenly, starts catching up to the strength of that decision. There is a moment, quiet, private, almost invisible, when a man stops negotiating with his doubt and starts commanding his future. He stops asking, what can I? And starts saying, I will. Not with arrogance, but with absolute alignment. Because belief, real belief, isn't loud. It doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't scream to be heard. It whispers, and the universe listens. You've been trained to wait for permission, to seek signs, to ask for reassurance. But those who rise the highest, those who shift the course of history, don't wait for the world to agree. They declare, they decide. And that decision, forged in solitude, backed by daily discipline, becomes inevitable. Because once the mind accepts something as already real, it begins to act in ways that make it so. That's why most people fail. Not because they aim too high, but because they never fully believe they can reach it. They walk halfway toward their dream, dragging the corpse of their doubt behind them, and wonder why they feel exhausted. But when you let go, when you burn the bridges back to fear, when you stand inside your vision as if it were already yours, you become unstoppable. It's not magic. It's not mystery. It's mechanics. Whatever the mind can conceive and fully believe, it must achieve. This isn't theory. It's the blueprint for every victory ever won. Your life is not waiting on luck. It's waiting on alignment. Your results will never outgrow your beliefs because your actions are chained to what you think is possible. You want more? Then you must become more in your mind first. You must see further, feel deeper, walk like the man or woman you're becoming before the evidence appears. This is the great test, to act in faith when nothing around you agrees with your vision, to believe when your bank account argues, to persist when your past whispers lies. But let me be clear. Faith isn't pretending. Faith is knowing. Knowing with such conviction that your thoughts sharpen your focus fuels your behavior, and your behavior shapes your results like water carving stone. This is how the impossible becomes inevitable, not overnight, not by chance, but by belief so persistent, so disciplined, so alive in you, that life itself has no choice but to cooperate. You must begin to carry yourself like the version of you who already has it. Not for show, but because your inner world dictates your outer one. And once you fully believe in a vision, you start talking different. You move different. You vibrate on a different frequency. The world notices. The doors open. And people who once ignored you now wonder where you came from. But it was never sudden. It was a war fought and won inside your own mind. The man who believes deeply enough does not chase, he attracts. He does not beg life for scraps. He commands it with quiet certainty because he has mastered the origin of all wealth, all power, all transformation, the thought behind the action. Most people obsess over effort. They grind, they hustle. But effort without alignment is like pushing a boulder uphill with no purpose. It breaks your back and empties your soul. But when belief and purpose align, action becomes electric. You work, yes, but you work with fire in your chest. You rise early, not because of pressure, but because of pull. You persist not because you're desperate, but because you're certain. There's a difference between chasing out of fear and advancing with belief. One drains you, the other builds you, and once you operate from belief, you start seeing opportunity where others see chaos. You start solving problems others run from. You become the person they call when everything's falling apart because you don't break under pressure, you clarify. This isn't arrogance. This is the fruit of disciplined imagination. Because you have dared to conceive something so bold, so precise, so undeniable in your mind that the world starts moving in rhythm with your inner music, and the ones who once doubted you now stare in silence, wondering how you did it. But it was never how, it was who you decided to become in the privacy of your thoughts, in the silence of your solitude, in the dark before the light came. Let me tell you something the world won't. You were never meant to live small, to play it safe, to shrink for anyone's comfort or approval. You were designed to build, to rise, to take the unseen image in your mind and manifest it into the fabric of reality. That's not fantasy. That's the sacred duty of every human being brave enough to believe. Because belief is more than mindset. It's your operating system. It determines what you try, how long you persist, and what you expect in return. When you believe in failure, you create excuses. When you believe in fear, you create limits. But when you believe in purpose, deeply, completely, you create momentum. You become immune to petty distractions. You stop waiting for ideal conditions. You move, and the world moves with you. But here's the part no one talks about. To believe at this level, you must be willing to break. You must be willing to kill off the old identity, the version of you that settled, that doubted, that tolerated mediocrity. Because belief demands sacrifice. You cannot cling to weakness and expect to live in power. You must shed your old thoughts like a snake sheds its skin, not once, but constantly. Because every level of growth requires a deeper level of belief, not comfort, not convenience, but commitment. And when you commit, when your soul signs the contract your words can't undo, the universe rearranges to meet you. The men and women you admire, the giants, the legends, the so-called lucky ones, they didn't get there by accident. They believed before the world gave them permission. They acted before results made it safe. They persisted long after the average mind would have quit. They were not superhuman. They were simply decided. That's the great separator. Not talent, not timing, but the decision to believe completely. Because belief doesn't just change what you hope for, it changes who you are. It reshapes your posture. It sharpens your tone. It rewires your choices. You begin to walk in truth. Not the truth you were handed, but the truth you chose to build. And here's the mystery the timid mind cannot grasp. The moment you believe without condition, without needing proof, without asking permission, life becomes malleable. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You stopped seeking external confirmation. You stopped needing applause. You became the source, the one who radiates certainty so deeply that circumstances start bowing in your presence. That's the quiet power of belief. It doesn't make noise. It makes moves, moves that look impossible until they're done. And then the same people who laughed at your dream ask how you pulled it off, but you know the answer. It started the moment you conceived the vision and believed it with every fiber of your being. The greatest lie ever told is that reality is fixed, that you are meant to observe life, not direct it, that you must fit in rather than reshape the frame entirely. But the truth is as old as thought itself. The mind is the origin of all things. There is no building before the blueprint, no speech before the idea, no triumph before the vision. Everything you now see was once imagined, and everything you long for already exists in the realm of thought. So what's stopping you? Doubt, fear, logic, or the belief that someone else is more worthy than you? Let me shatter that illusion right now. No one is coming to crown you king. No one is going to hand you your mission on a silver plate. You must claim it, seize it, burn for it so intensely that the world feels your heat before you ever arrive. Your dream is not asking for politeness. It's asking for conviction. Can you wake up when no one claps for you? Can you keep going when no one sees you? Can you believe in a future that hasn't even shown its face yet? Because that is what separates the ones who imagine a better life from the ones who live it. You must become the evidence before there is any. You must embody the outcome before it materializes. This is the alchemy of belief. It turns unseen thought into undeniable reality. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can and must achieve. Now, listen closely. This is not just a statement. It is not a slogan to be whispered when you're feeling brave. It is a law, a universal principle as real as gravity. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can and will achieve. But the gate to that power is narrow. It will not open for the distracted. It will not bow to the inconsistent. It yields only to those who are disciplined in imagination, violent in focus, and unyielding in belief. You must become the kind of person who walks through fire and does not flinch, because you knew the fire was part of the path. You must train your thoughts like soldiers. No strays, no deserters. You must hold the vision when no one else sees it. Believe in the outcome before one brick is laid, and move with purpose before the road is clear. This is your life, not your rehearsal, not your second draft. This is it. And right now, you can choose to rewrite the whole thing. You can let go of the doubt they planted in you. You can silence the voices that told you to shrink. You can stare into the mirror and declare, I was meant for more. Not because you deserve it by default, but because you are willing to become it. So rise. Rise in your thinking. Rise in your speaking. Rise in your doing. And understand, the mind is not your cage. It is your catapult. What you feed it becomes your fate. What you believe and becomes your world. So believe boldly. Imagine wildly. Act fearlessly. Because what you dare to conceive, deny, and refuse to doubt, you will inevitably, unshakably achieve. Now go, not as who you were, but as who you were always meant to become, and never again forget. Your destiny begins the moment you believe. So plant the seed in your mind tonight, water it with faith, feed it with discipline, and guard it with relentless persistence. Because the world does not give you what you want. It gives you what you are willing to believe into existence. Stop waiting. Start believing. Then act like it's already done. The world makes way for those who dare to rise. Click the Rise button now to subscribe and claim the destiny waiting for you. Your time is now.